So we finally got the first episode of Lanterns, and today we're gonna talk about whether this is finally a positive direction for the DCU with some real potential, or if it's just another nail in the coffin that's making me even more worried about the future of this universe. And to really talk about it properly, there will be spoilers for the first episodes in this video, so consider yourselves warned, and let's talk about Lanterns. First of all, I was kind of worried going into this show. The trailers did not look promising in my opinion, and I was genuinely afraid this was going to be a complete disaster. Like, not complete disaster, but I just thought it wasn't gonna be good. That promised True Detective vibe just wasn't working for me, but at the same time the trailers also failed to really sell the superhero elements that you'd expect from a superhero show. So as a first impression, I have to say that it actually ended up being better than I expected, but even then, I don't think this is some kind of savior for the DCU. Honestly, it just feels like a slightly above average solid episode of television, but I definitely see some potential for the future. The opening flashback was a little strange. It basically felt like a cold open that didn't really provide any deeper insight into John's background that couldn't have been delivered through a quick exchange of dialogue. And Hal's interview on television also felt somewhat awkwardly written, like the writers were just trying to get the information across as quickly as possible, but it's fine. Although the whole Apple stuff is some really weird shit, so I'm curious to see whether that's going to become more important later on. Then we jump to 2016, where we see Hal training John for an emergency situation, and honestly their chemistry works pretty well here, the banter, the humor, all of that, but there's also this sense of mutual respect between them which isn't necessarily shown verbally all that often, but you can still feel it, and I like that. The scenes themselves aren't particularly dramatic though, and the show doesn't really pull you in that strongly at this point. Then the actual plot starts to kick in, with Hal's ring warning him about events taking place in Nebraska. And if you're still watching, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks, and let's get back into it. Once they get there, we're introduced to the local sheriff and there's immediately some tension between them, but honestly this whole part feels pretty generic. It's all very by the books without much else going on. Hal suspects this isn't a human case but something involving an alien. The sheriff doesn't believe him, and so on and so on. Even John's chase scene is shot in a pretty routine way and isn't particularly exciting. This section just really didn't work that strong for me. Hal then deliberately gets himself arrested, which, as the show itself basically points out too, is a pretty stupid plan, and unsurprisingly it doesn't really work. Meanwhile, John sleeps with a mysterious woman at a bar, which I found to be an extremely strange scene, because it doesn't really make sense to me in the context of John's character. Up until that point he had been portrayed as reserved, principled, organized and disciplined. He wouldn't even drink alcohol while working, and now he's suddenly randomly sleeping with some woman. After just that quick exchange, I just don't really understand it, and I don't think it's particularly well written, but maybe it will be explained in the future and it will start making more sense. Anyway, Hal eventually ends up in court and the sheriff's husband is able to get him released on bail, but only on condition that Hal has dinner with him and his father, William Macon, and as we later find out, William is this paranoid, conspiracy-minded guy who also believes that something supernatural is happening and basically wants to give Hal the opportunity to fix it. He also has this fairly large security team, which is all very strange, along with a ridiculous number of guns. You know the type. And this entire scene also didn't really do that much for me. We don't get any particularly strong development of the relationships, the mystery or the stakes. Everything just kind of keeps moving along in a strange way, and we do find out that John slept with William's wife, which is honestly insane. That was the mysterious woman, of course, and I don't know if that's going to have some actual purpose later on or if it's just supposed to function as a joke for now, but the entire situation feels strange and out of character to me. Then we finally get a scene where Hal interrogates the supposed alien, and this is where we get my favorite part of the episode, the conversation between the sheriff and John, where they discuss the idea of fearlessness. I really liked that because it explores the line between actually being fearless and simply being lonely, having nothing to lose and no one to live for, and whether in that case you're actually the biggest coward of all. And that's a really interesting contrast, and I appreciate that they decided to explore it even with this short and quick conversation. I also really like the way Hal figures out and proves that the suspect isn't actually human but an alien. He basically catches him by asking about general information and then slowly showing that his knowledge of the world simply doesn't make sense. I thought that was genuinely clever, I really appreciated that. What didn't work for me quite as well though was how easily the alien managed to get under Hal's skin. That happened way too quickly in my opinion. I didn't really understand why those words affected him so much. To me it just felt like an artificial attempt to increase the tension and raise the stakes, and it didn't completely work. Still, the alien tries to blow himself up and Hal manages to stop the explosion, although not fully. But then we jump 10 years forward into 2026, back to present day, where John and the sheriff discover that Hal has apparently been murdered, which is definitely an interesting hook. Now, no, I don't actually think he's dead. I think it's probably going to be some alien impersonating Hal or some kind of misdirect. I don't think that they're actually going to do it exactly as it appears, but still, it's a pretty cool hook and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what happens next. For now, though, you can clearly see that the show is trying to imitate True Detective even in the way it jumps non-linearly across different time periods and multiple storylines. But it's also clear that so far they haven't really done that much with it. Of course, there's still plenty of time for that to change, but they haven't completely convinced me yet that the show is going to have a particularly strong sense of editing, or that these different timelines will eventually flow together as beautifully as they could. But yeah, that's basically where I stand on Lanterns. It's actually pretty solid, the chemistry between the two main characters works well enough, even though neither of them has really grown on me yet and I don't feel any real connection to them. The mystery has been set up nicely and I'm definitely interested in seeing the next episodes, but I don't think this is some incredibly strong start like some people online are saying. But after Supergirl it's at least pretty good, but let's be honest, the bar isn't exactly that high. Anyway, that's everything for this video. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end, and for more videos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and let me know down in the comments what you thought about the first episode of Lanterns. I'd love to read your thoughts. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video.